outside of the statewide dual credit. That you have to work with an outside entity, be a college board or someone to do that. So, and sometimes trying to get all the universities to be on the same page of what they'll accept. And I mean, AP is even that to some degree. I mean, there's some that'll take certain levels of scores versus other levels of scores. So I think trying to get that level of cooperation outside like border regions, which we have in some of these like dual enrollment, to be accepted across the board, I think that's hard. So I don't believe that ever came to fruition. Okay. If I'm wrong, Shannon will correct me. Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot that we talked about in that thing never came to fruition.
It's a good idea, it's just a lot of cooperation has to take place. All right, so if you want to know what a Ready Graduate is, so again, the name of the game now is Ready Graduate, not just graduate, so there's kind of that assumption you're going to get across the stage, but have you done a combination of these things? One, scoring the 21 on the ACT, we've talked a lot about that in the past, but again, there are plenty of other ways to show that. One would be to complete 4 episodes, and we just kind of talked through those and gave you more of that over the course of your 4 years in high school, or complete 2 episodes and earned industry certification. That's another way, so there's different combinations. Or complete 2 episodes and a designated score on the ASVAB, which we typically think of as the military exam that they've done for aptitude and those sorts of things in the past. So those would count as well. So all of these, every student, we hope, will have one of these pathways taken care of, which takes planning from kind of the middle school 8th grade year on to make sure you've got a pathway for that to happen. And we also don't want to just cram people into industry certifications or into courses that don't make sense for them really getting ready for life after high school.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that I think I know that that they provide the ASVAB for free, like the military and stuff. Are we offering that to all our schools? Is there like a set time where they test like they do with the ACT?
So we partner with the recruiters of the military to do that. They don't have the ability to kind of stop, drop, and test like we do on the ACT. They don't have the personnel to be able to help cover that. So individual schools schedule that with those groups to get that done, because we did look into that 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's another part of that there are students who are already on their path well ahead by their freshman or sophomore year in route to get some of those things done, and to sit for that knowing they already have another viable pathway, just, it might give them their 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th episode, but it's probably not really needed for where they're headed with their career.
So it's principals, the principals can schedule it on there?
They contact and schedule that, and I think our secondary office keeps track of that. I'm pretty sure almost all of our schools are doing that, but they may be doing it for groups of their population instead of their whole team.
Okay.
And then finally, I'll do this last slide and turn it over to Shannon, but here's really what our vision is as we move forward and what we're trying to get done. We believe very strongly, I know there's different talk about different kinds of things, but we really believe strongly that every school, every one of our high schools has to have a robust CTE program. We're not big fans of pull out separate schools for that. We think that to create the workforce of tomorrow, you can't be either or, you have to be both. And so when you look at the expansion within, part of that requires thinking differently about CTE, and Keith will speak to that in a minute. It's not just the trades, it's not just so we have to, there's a lot of criminal justice and all these other things that are out there, a lot of our coding and things that are coming, they're really high level things that are going on. So we think every school should have a robust CTE program. We also are pushing that every one of our high schools offers at least one advanced academic program. Most of them are offering AP right now. We continue to have people explore IB. West is our current, West and Beard Mill, our current only IB programs that we have. We have some other looking at IB, and then Cambridge International, the Shannon will speak to, that's recognized by the state. And we're the large district. We don't offer that yet, but pretty much all the other 3 do.
Can I ask a quick question
Sure.
on that point? Why is West the only IB program in all of our?
We want to change that.
Okay.
I mean, we really do. So I think at one point.
Is there a barrier to entry financially or logistically that has kept it?
Yeah, Shannon can speak to this too. I'll just say this. I think
A lot of training of teachers.
yeah, there were more transfers for that. This should tell you the history of some of
Okay,
that.
I may be jumping ahead, so I'll
I'll do this when
It's a
you
good
come up
question.
with this part without, because that way I can get off, But I do think at one point, we had a lot more kind of magnetizing programs and people transferring for those reasons. And what we're realizing now is West is really ahead of the game. Like we need that level of, and it could be AP courses, pre-AP courses that are just very robust and aligned. But we need to provide that in every school so a student doesn't feel like they have to move cross county to go take something. We need to have that on all ends of our county. So, but I'll let her speak to the history
Okay.
of those questions for sure. And then we want to make sure that we have very clear paths from when a student comes out of 8th grade, that they've done career exploration, they've done youth science, which Keith will speak to too, so they have some idea of their interest, and that we have a good line for them, and it's not left to
students are participating in those diploma classes in some way. So that doesn't mean everybody is a full diploma candidate, but that would be true with AP and Cambridge as well. But they're taking that opportunity and having that experience. Something that West has done very well with that, I think, is to interview the students who take their first advanced course as a senior and ask them what it was that prevented them from doing it earlier and try to understand. And they have worked with Bearden to sort of figure out what are the barriers and how do they help kids to be ready and to see themselves as participants in those higher programs. So we're looking at this for all of our schools. This is something we've learned a lot through watching that process. But we believe that every student needs to have that opportunity for the exposure at their level. And we've got lots of data that support that. And one of the things that we saw was the UT retention study. The students who are most likely to be retained from their freshman to their sophomore year at UT have at least one advanced course on their transcript. And it doesn't matter if they passed the exam, and it didn't matter which course it was. It was the exposure to that level of rigor prior to getting into school. And one of the things we've talked about is when they graduate, if they go on to university or they go on to industry certification, all of their courses are advanced coursework. So it's best for them to have that experience while they're with a K-12 educator who understands the developing adolescent brain and can help to put some of those executive functioning skills in place to help them be able to handle that coursework. And they understand then what that expectation is. They know what they're getting into before they're going on to the university where they're experiencing freedom for the first time, and all of their courses are at that level of rigor and expectation. Same with leaving and going into the workforce, doing an industry certification, that they do better if they have some scaffolding into that process. So that's driving a lot of what we're thinking about with this. So we have three options that we can look at with this level of coursework for the advanced coursework. Advanced placement is the one that's been around the longest. There are 38 advanced placement courses that are available to our students, and they are launching a pre-AP program that will mimic the IB's NYP program to prepare the students for that coursework. It's in early development. We have 3 schools that are participating in that because they're in their pilot cohort. So Bearden High was accepted into the first cohort. 100 schools in the country were selected, and Bearden was one of them. We have 2 more this year, Carnes and Farragut, who were selected to be in the pre-AP cohort.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
is it totally just a high school thing with the pre-AP, or do they try to go down to the middle school for that?
So in the pilot, they limited it to 9th grade only. So we had Algebra 1 was one of the pilot courses. We were not allowed to offer that to our 8th grade Algebra 1 students. This year we can. As we move forward, they anticipate that it's going to build 6th grade to 8th grade and then build to 10th grade. I don't think they plan to build pre-AP beyond 10th grade. So by that point, they expect students to be in the AP courses.
What other schools applied? Do we have other schools that applied?
Those are the only 3 schools
That
that
apply.
I know of that applied. So they're the ones who reached out to me for support. So we are, in the next year, it is open for, the pilot is over, and any school can apply and become a pre-AP school. So they will have curriculum resources, there'll be professional development, and they will have the designation on the transcript of pre-AP. Pre-AP is not an honors course. Pre-AP is for everybody. You can have pre-AP and pre-AP honors, so they can still continue to have honors courses, but pre-AP is really about everybody having that exposure and that opportunity to try to reach that potential. So they have 4 pillars of instruction. They mirror the pillars that we're working on anyway, with being able to write, being able to ask good questions and inquire, reading complex text across the grade level, and getting into problem solving. So those are skills we want everybody to have when they leave, so that they can have good careers and succeed academically after the school.
But what does that process look like, the application process look like for schools to apply? And how difficult is it? So we have Bearden, Carnes, and Farragut. What do other schools need to do to examine that for their individual student supports?
So it required them to put together a PD plan,
Okay.
a communication plan with parents.
Okay.
And that was, so I think some people wanted to see what did this look like?
Right.
And how did it feel doing it are looking to expand, and I do have more schools that are reaching out in order to participate. The pilot also required them to participate in monthly PD, where they were doing assessments and having to look with their colleagues across the nation at how students were doing on those assessments so that they could continue to tweak that program to make sure it aligned.
So do our teachers get professional development in the summer in order to qualify to apply for the application process in time for, see, I don't know when the window is.
They had to apply in October.
Okay.
And then we brought all those contracts to our board
Okay.
in January, February. Once those were approved, they were then able to apply for the training and go through training all summer. Right, they have adjusted that, so
Okay.
now it's a statement of interest and inquiry and
Okay.
submitting your plan. So it's much easier this year.
Yeah, that helps.
Who decides that? Is the principal?
They make those decisions with their leadership teams. So a principal or a teacher was interested, and then the leadership teams would discuss it, and that was something that was part of the application too, that there had to be within the ninth grade team enough interest that they would commit to those expectations.
You say leaders team?
Leadership teams.
Leadership.
Shannon, is this, like the, so, is this like the used to have a standard and a basic and advanced of different classes? So it's like pre-AP, the one in the middle now? A kid can take a standard class or a pre-AP or a AP?
So every student who is in Biology 1, if it's a pre-AP course, every student who's in Biology 1 is in pre-AP. And that's where you can have pre-AP honors or pre-AP. So
if it's a
they
pre-AP
still have
school?
those designations. If it's a pre-AP school.
School, okay,
yes. So,
There are courses, I think what Ms. Hill's asking is, there are courses that are just AP courses. These are the courses prior to it that currently don't operate.
right, these are the courses leading up to.
It's a precursor to
So-
AP.
But they have like, municipality, they have honors biology, don't they?
I'm sorry, speak up,
So
Terry.
our honors biology class,
Oh,
if
I'm
it's a
sorry.
pre-AP school, would become a pre-AP honors biology. And then their standard biology would be pre-AP biology.
And is it just embedding certain standards of teaching in
Yes.
that maybe were not already present?
Yes, it's embedding the skills necessary to be ready to go into an AP biology class. Knowing that, and the reason it's for everybody is that not everybody may be mature enough yet to take AP biology or have the interest to do what they need to do for AP biology. But when they graduate and go on to either post-secondary, whether it's community school or community college or four-year degree or industry certification, they're going to need those same skills. So they're getting that exposure across the board, and then some may go on into the advanced placement.
So I'm confused, so they take AP biology, and then they turn around and take, if they choose to, honors biology,
Their
What am I missing
honors
here?
biology course would be pre-AP. So they would have the resources and the curriculum that directly helps them prepare for AP biology. And then they could
It's like the
choose
first level of biology.
All biology.
Instead of
You're
honors.
saying standard biology, so all biology is pre-AP biology, there's not a, and then, so you really, instead of just having standard biology and honors biology, you now have pre-AP that's standard, and you have pre-AP honors.
Okay, so
So
it's
it's just
just
a-
changing the
yeah.
name.
And then,
Right.
but, and then they can move on to AP biology if they want to do further biology
And
later
the
on.
pedagogy and the activities are
Okay.
different in the
And the
pre-AP.
name makes it confusing.
Yeah.
Because pre-AP has a certain connotation to us that, right.
Okay,
So-
gotcha.
And this is for the schools that are designated as the pre-AP schools though, right? Not all, well, does it go all of our schools?
In the pilot, they had to be accepted by
Yeah.
College Board to be in the pilot. cohort.
And those are the 3 schools we have.
Those are the 3 schools we have. Moving forward, any school can do pre-AP.
So is it a district, is it a district push to to make all of our schools that, or what is?
So we have 3 programs, and what we are asking our schools is,
Pick one.
over the next few years, because
Few?
there's a
How
bigger
many?
plan, well, because there's a bigger plan.
Okay, good.
And so where it
We
is
need
right
it
for
today.
them to go into this plan, to identify what their academic identity will be.
Okay.
Different advanced programs align better to different
Mhm,
CTE programs than others. So we would probably say, look at what your CTE programming is as well, and make a good marriage with those programs.
So basically, is what you're saying, like Farragut, for instance, is an AP school, like AP all the way. West is an IB school, IB all the way. So is that what you're saying? Basically, each school will
Academic
have their identity so that, yeah, okay.
I just have a lot of questions.
That's why we're here, so good.
What is the district's, I guess, what is the by 20, what will all schools have an academic identity? I know, they might not
Looking
even.
at this, I'm going to look to my boss.
Hey, John, if you have an answer to this, if you would come to the podium, because that will help with the recording, I imagine.
So, great question, Ms. Satterfield. So part of where we want to go is all on the vision part of that was that we want every school to have both an advanced academic identity and a robust CTE program aligned to business, industry, and workforce. So where we are right now is that's not something we want to force down from on high. We do, to Shannon's point, we want to make sure, the principals looking at that, their communities looking at it. Some of them have a 15, 20-year history, as Ms. Horn pointed out, in something like AP. The last thing we want to do is go to Farragut and say, you interested in Cambridge? I mean, like they know, our families know this, we understand it, it's working for us. But there are other schools that maybe have had less of a focus on that. Maybe they offer an AP class every other year, or, just because of that. And we want to say, how do you bolster that up? If you want to adopt Cambridge, IB, you want to do pre-AP with your AP, but what we want to do is try to increase those opportunities at every school by them focusing on one thing instead of being spread too thin, focusing on 3 or 4 things to get really good. Because there is professional development for each one of these. There are required trainings, and like the sciences have labs and the writings, so we want to really have schools focus on one. But we want them, so we have, and you're getting into this, we have some schools right now that are doing some exploratory in those different areas to see if this is a good fit for our school. They're doing some scout trips and things to look at that and bring back, and then help tell us when and along that 3 to 4 years how they'll adopt that. Because we also know we're going to pay for professional development, and we need to work on those things too. So we can't do everybody at one time.
Can I ask a
Hold your
question?
thought. I think hold on.
Yeah,
Ms.
no,
Horn, you have
Well,
I have a
no,
question too. So.
Okay, I was just gonna make a further comment to kind of help explain, just like you'll see in CTE that each school has its own identity with CTE, it's the same thing here. Like, for instance, Hardin Valley has a huge number of dual enrollment students because they're a mile from Pellissippi. So you would expect that. So while Farragut can have dual enrollment, it's going to be a much, much smaller percentage because of the distance from the school and the way it's set up. So some of our schools, already have their identity. So I think it's probably those that don't have kind of one of these that hopefully over the next couple of years they will be able to develop one.
My question was that when schools sort of pick their academic identity for
I like that term.
yeah. Is it a package deal? For instance, I know Holston Middle School is interested in being an IB school, but does that also have to couple with the feeder to the high school that they have to be on the same page? As one can't do it without the other, so you gotta both get on the same page together to go forward.
Larson.
So we are asking our schools to work together because there are implications back and forth. But we do have Holston exploring IB. We also have Austin East and Vine exploring IB. And they are just exploring because there is a need to know if it is the right fit for your school. How does it sit with the community? It's a lift for everybody who's involved. So we're in that exploratory phase right now. And just to go ahead I'm moving into Cambridge next, but Cambridge, the Carter community and the South Doyle community are looking at Cambridge. So we have that exploration happening across the district. And as John said, it will take some time for them to figure out if this is the right fit, and we want to give them the space to do that.
Got it.
I'm kind of asking this question somewhat for me, but also sometimes for the county commissioners, because I don't know if they're as much aware of it. And this kind of came up in one of our school board meetings last year about the fact that now the state requires you to actually take the exam AP or IB exam, and I guess Cambridge would be the same way, in order to get your extra points for that class, like your extra points. One of the issues is, and I get this call a lot as kind of a school board member and stuff like that, these tests are expensive. And I do look at, like, as Austin East is looking at it, and I'm sure they would have some of the same issues I'm getting with parents. I mean, it easily can cost over $1,000 to take the number of tests you need to take to get the IB diploma. And so how are we talking about as a district how we're going to handle some of this cost for kids so that it's not a financial burden that they can't get academically ahead because their family can't afford it?
So for the last 2 years, I've been able to allocate Title IV dollars specifically to helping students who need exam support. So all of the schools have been able to offer a discounted price for IB and AP exams. We have not offered Cambridge as a district before. That's something that we will be doing, and they also work with the state on a reduced price for students who have economic need. And there are 8 reasons that they can do that. It's not just limited to direct cert like some other programs are. And so principals are able to sign off that there's a student who has a particular need. And then our Title IV dollars have served as a last dollar scholarship for the students the principals have identified. So if there is a student who has had need, then their exam costs have been covered. And when we look at the cost of the exam versus the cost of the college credit, it is significantly cheaper for them to take that exam. So using those dollars in that way to support students is really giving them that leg up that they need to be able to go into their post-secondary experience with college credit and hopefully graduate on time without taking all that additional
Okay.
coursework.
No, I'm glad to hear that, because I just know it's
That's
a
great.
huge concern for parents out there. It's like, oh, it's this catch-22. You want me to take these classes, but then I can't afford to take them.
It was
And
an
the cost of
application for
Cambridge
us
is
as well.
very expensive.
Pardon?
It's expensive. The cost of Cambridge is expensive. And would it be covered by Title I dollars? Because if that's what Austin East is looking at, how would you capture the cost of that with the number of students that potentially could be impacted by that?
So it would be, so we are covering the cost of their AP exams right now.
Okay.
And those costs are pretty commensurate.
Okay.
So it would just be changing out the IB for the AP
Okay.
exam.
Okay.
And our hope, I have budgeted, more than we need each time, expecting us to have some growth. And our hope is that we will end up using all of that, because we'll have so many students taking the exams and earning the credit.
Thank you.
Okay, so just moving through the programs, the International Baccalaureate program, as I've told you, we're exploring that. It's very similar to the IB program. It has built into it approaches to learning, which are the soft skills of teaching students about how to be academically responsible for themselves. There's a service component that is required as part of the International Baccalaureate program, and it is not just the hours, it is the reflection on how those hours developed them as a person. And there is also a 4,000-word paper the students have to write on an area of interest that they studied in high school, and it has to be researched independently. The teacher who is assigned to be their sponsor of that paper is allowed to ask them questions and to give them feedback, but it is to be produced completely by the student. AP is working on a similar model. It is not as fleshed out right now, and Cambridge has something similar also. So the Cambridge program is also up here, and I'm moving through this quickly because I was in 5 minutes.
No. We want the information.
You do? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
don't rush.
So as with Cambridge and IB, both have programs that go all the way down into elementary school. We have concentrated in the high school programs first and then backwards plan. And there's a reason for that. When we were going through the IB trainings several years ago at West, the high school that was there training with us was not approved. They did not make it through the authorization process, and their middle school had. So they had a group of parents that were quite upset because their kids had been through the middle years program and there was no training program for them to go to. So we have always planned it backwards, even though it means there is a little bit of a lag where students are working up to that level of rigor. We know for sure that there is a terminal program for the kids to
Just quickly before you move to Cambridge, what percentage or how many students at West actually graduated with the IB diploma?
So I know for this year, I think there are 48 diploma candidates. Typically, they have around a 50% pass rate on that, that's high for the national average.
I know it's very rigorous.
I think I got the numbers actually for something. I think it was like 30, out of last year's graduating class, I think 35 got the full diploma.
Wow.
But the number of kids taking, it's kind of almost like AP, you can take just a standalone class. I mean, there are
Right,
hundreds
I
of kids.
understand that, but as far as actually having that
It's like
designation of the
35.
diploma, 35.
35 out of how many total students in the whole school versus how many are taking?
So I don't look at it as a senior
Roughly,
class. So the
yeah.
senior class is usually between 327, 350.
Okay, so
it's about-
10%.
You got about 10%.
That's it, okay.
And I'll even tell you, I mean, I had a son that he did the full IB. He missed the diploma by 1 point. It was a little painful. It doesn't matter for anything. I mean, he had done all the work. He worked really hard. He wrote this huge research paper. And I mean, he was very
Exposure.
disappointed, but I'm like, son, you're ready for college.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
he has been very ready. So, I mean, you can really, there's a group of them that don't get the diploma, but they've
Right.
done a lot of work and I think are very prepared for college.
What we have found is looking at admission rates, students who are diploma candidates are accepted at a very high rate, and it's only marginally better for those who actually achieve the diploma.
Oh, okay.
So it is
Makes
the participation in the program that, and part of that is they don't know if they earned the diploma until July. They
Right.
graduate in May, they want to where they're going.
And your college never finds out. I mean, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It never gets reported.
But the work that they do prepares them very well.
Sure.
And the AP diploma that Farragut now has is very similar, and it's it's not a very big cohort. This is only the second or third year, but it's also that confidence that these kids have. So my daughter, as a junior, when we dropped my college daughter off, my 16-year-old says, you know, I'm actually ready I could go to school here tomorrow. I'm ready for this. And it's because of her AP classes.
Exposure.
So she has proof based on the College Board that she's actually prepared and ready for college. So I love the thought of the middle school students thinking about themselves in that reference, because it will translate. So I think you make a good point, that even if they don't get the diploma, it's still going to help them in their college years.
That's right, that is our thinking. So I'll say, as a teacher, I really like being able to say to my students, I don't set the standard because this is a national standard, and I'm telling you that this is what it is so that you will know that you're ready, but I know how to coach you how to get here, and it was because of going to those trainings and that support, so I was able to feel the level of confidence that I was sending them out with the skills they needed. Cambridge is similar. It is our newest one and the one we know the least about because we haven't offered it here. So we have 2 schools that have been engaging with training around Cambridge. It has a similar structure in that they offer within a series of classes that they take. Just classes, instead of IB has 6, AP has 6, Cambridge has 6 to 4. So they take courses from all 4 areas and they do those additional projects. They can earn the Cambridge diploma. These are the Cambridge CASE exams that come out of Cambridge University. And so they're the same ones that our British counterparts would take. We hear about their O-level exams, and this aligns to that, the GSEs and other exams. So they also come with post-secondary credit and the attainment. And this is one that, as our teachers are looking into this, where IB you have to move as an entire school. With Cambridge, you can do a course at a time. So our schools that are looking at this will be looking to probably offer courses where the teachers are trained and ready and feel like it's the right fit for their school. So we should see some of these coming up for discussion in the spring.
Would I look at Cambridge and IB the same way as I look at like ACT and SAT? Like they're the same type outcome? Okay.
And that's where, we see all 3 of them as very valuable programs. They all contribute something. It's a matter of figuring out which one is
Best
right
fit.
for the school and the community. And as a district of our size, we need to be able to offer all of them so that our families have that opportunity to engage in the one that they
For clarification, would a school ever offer all three, or two of the three, or would they really pick one of the three?
They could offer two of the three, but they would need to probably focus on one.
Got it, okay.
For example, West is an IB school, they offer some AP exams.
Got it, okay.
IB, your entire school has to be ready to move to IB.
So you really do have to pick that
You have to decide.
academic identity as a through line. So you're going to brand that.
So-
I'll kind of tell you something else, like at West, I mean, there's some
Copyright
standalone AP classes at West, but like my daughters did the IB program, but then they also chose to take the AP exam.
I see, okay. That helps clarify it, I think.
Sort of, but they're not the same, but they sort of aligned.
Sure.
Because they actually thought they could get the credit sometimes easier in one than, they're just some different
Yeah.
strategies
Okay.
and stuff.
I taught the IB, the English class for IB, and my students took the AP Lit exam at the end of the year, along with their IB exams. So, because they thought they could make it, and they did. I mean, I had taught AP long enough that I was able to say, you're ready to do that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And so Cambridge, you can pick a course at a time, like you can, so that would be more suited for our schools that might have higher turnover in teacher?
It could be. I probably would choose to offer that in places where you have some consistency, so you can
Oh.
build the program.
Okay.
So one issue that if you want to build to the diploma, then you're going to need to plan that effort so that you have that full Cambridge diploma and build the identity, which is what the schools are looking for.
Okay.
And there's additional professional development with any of them.
There is-
Sure.
Yes, there is quite a bit of professional development, but it is also, what we hear from our teachers is that it is some of the best professional development they engage in. It's so directly
great.
connected to what they're.
And they can use, and so even if you're teaching a class that's not AP, your other gen ed kids or your, other standard kids are benefiting because the teachers are teaching from
Parents
that
have to
viewpoint.
realize that the strategies in these courses are good for all kids.
Can I ask you a question? I mean, I'm pretty familiar with IB and AP. I'm not so familiar with Cambridge. So when our South Doyle, take South Doyle, for instance, when they were looking at the array of three, what is it about Cambridge that would make you pick Cambridge over IB or AP? I just don't know what the distinguishing characteristics of it
Sure,
are.
I think your different communities are responding differently to them and to different incentives within their particular communities. I think South Doyle has mentioned that they actually like the newness of Cambridge. It's a fresh way to think about things and to bring in this international perspective. And with Cambridge and with IB actually, they don't have any multiple choice testing as part of what they're doing. So they're excited about this idea that the students will be doing performance-based assessments in order to demonstrate their knowledge, and they have, I think, a few more opportunities to show what they know in these courses, and so that's something that excites them and that they want to explore.
That's great. Okay. Thank you. That was great information.
I can talk about this for a week.
Cut it off, Shannon. So, hopefully, I will touch on, I told John when he walked away, he promised I was going to talk about 3 or 4 different things that aren't in any of my slides, so I'll try to touch on those at the end.
And could you just introduce yourself, please? I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Keith Wilson, Career Technical Ed Director for this country. So, to touch actually on that last question about Cambridge, I know in some of the initial conversations as we were looking at advanced academic, one of the plugs for Cambridge too was alignment to the CTE programming at South Doyle High School, because there are some called out, you'll see some career courses, even the state's done the alignment work on some of those for certain CTE programs, so like hospitality and tourism, they've got both a culinary program and a marketing program there, that, which is pretty close to marketing when you look at our standards. So there are opportunities to make those connections between the career tech focus at your school and some of the advanced academic. You'll see some examples with AP and what I'm going to show you as well, which goes back to what John was saying about the fact that we really do believe, that both pieces have to exist in the fabric of the school. We have to have opportunities in both areas that are valuable to the students. And so when I'm going to share with you some information really primarily about the industry certifications. Certainly any questions you have, stop me along the way. And I'm only going to give you some examples when it comes to these in the CTE programs, because again, there are 16 nationally recognized career clusters. Within those 16 industry sectors, if you will, there are multiple programs of study that our teachers can teach, and we offer a variety of those. So there's no way in our time today I could cover all of that, so I'll just give you sort some examples of how those work. Our Knox County students participate in a wide range of certifications across many different disciplines. When I say that, those are industry standard certifications that come from a variety of vendors that are outside of education, quite often setting the standards for those. So when we take on a new industry certification and start to incorporate that into classrooms, quite often that means that teacher is having to do some learning and having to have some training as well. And when we look at the standards for the courses in CTE, how those industry certifications get incorporated into what the teacher is already doing varies as well. So the state's done a lot in the last 2-3 years, a lot of work to make sure that there's strong alignment between a course and when we're, or a series of courses, and when we're offering an industry certification. But again, it's a learning process, and so we've sort of slowly added that to that catalog as we go. And quite honestly, like, we're engaged in a few this year that we're saying, let's see how this works, and we'll come back and get some feedback and make decisions about how to move forward with that certification going forward. In addition, you'll see some AP opportunities. There's also dual enrollment opportunities. We continue to try to build our catalog with that because dual enrollment can be part of your CTE program if there are opportunities available for that. So I know you can't read this, but I just want to show you this quickly.
And by the way, all the presentations will be available and emailed out, so they always make them available. So if you want to go back and review anything that is hard to read, then we will get a copy of this.
Excellent. So if you look at the number of certifications earned, as I mentioned, the state's really kind of dug into this work over the last 2 to 3 years. I've been in this role for 2 years, so really the push around industry certifications is still pretty fresh. When you start to look at the graduating class, for instance, last year of graduating seniors that had an industry certification, that was not a huge number, again, because those were students who haven't really been involved in that process very long. When you look at ready graduate numbers in terms of the impact that industry certifications is having on that right now, it's not that dramatic. But I think over time, as you see students who've gone through a full, progression, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, in an environment where we're really focused on those industry certifications, you'll see that number grow. So for 17-18, we had in the district 754 students at all grade levels earn an industry certification. I take that back. We had 754 certifications earned. You may have had students earn more than one. I should say that correctly. For last school year, 18-19, we were right around that 990. So you see an increase there. The thing I'm proud of in the small writing that you can't read that you see across the bottom is that we grew also the areas we were offering those in. So that was 29 distinct industry certifications that we had students earn across multiple disciplines that we offer. And again, I'll blow up a few examples here so you can see kind of what we're talking about. So I like to show this because it kind of gives you a snapshot of what a CTE program and study looks like. And so, as I mentioned, there are career clusters, industry sectors, if you will, and this falls within our architecture and construction career cluster. And the program here is called Structural Systems, which essentially is carpentry, if you want to look at it that way. So for a student who is engaged in this program of study, and how do you get into a CTE class, generally is because you choose that as your elective focus. So when you are choosing your courses for the high school, obviously you have to have math and science and English and so many credits in each of those, but you also have to choose an elective focus, which means you're going to earn 3 credits in an elective path of your study. That could be arts, it could be a variety of things, and one of those choices is in the career technical focus. If you do that, you would follow a course sequence, ideally, in one of those. So for this case, that first course, if you look on top there, is the Fundamentals of Construction. A student would start in that level 1 kind of freshman level course. They would move next to Structural Systems 1, next to Structural Systems 2. If we offered that, we really don't use Structural Systems 2. We have students move straight into the construction practicum class. With that class, the way we're doing that at most of our high school campuses is we have the students engaged in a project to build tiny cabins, tiny homes, and they work on those throughout the semester, and we basically auction those off and use the money back in to build them again the next semester. So it's kind of a project-based, it's a work-based learning experience, but it happens on campus for them, where they work on those projects. So you see the courses that we're offering across the top. Obviously, dual enrollment is an option if you had a post-secondary partner nearby that you could offer that dual enrollment option. We are not currently doing that with carpentry. And on the bottom level, you see the industry certifications that are available. So one thing to know about industry certifications too, as I said, they vary widely, is how they're administered and how students engage in them and what they cost. All of that varies widely too because of the different vendors that we're talking about. So in this particular case, and you'll see that the NCCER core is one that we do a lot of. We have a lot of student success with that. And the reason for that is because essentially all we do is teach that curriculum. We teach them the NCCER curriculum in the class. The students participate in the curriculum. They test by taking a module test at the end of each module or unit. And if they're successful on those modules throughout the semester, at the end they have earned that core certification. That's different than other places where you may just be in a class for the semester and have to take a test to certify. We're actually teaching portions of that test along the way. Students can retest if they're not successful. So we have a very high success rate with that certification. With NCCER, again, this is because of the organization, the vendor, those are stackable certifications. So for a student to earn a carpentry certification at the next level, they have to have the core certification. So you can't go and just jump into Carpentry 1 and earn NCCER Carpentry 1. You have to have the core certification first before you can add on that next level of certification. And that curriculum in particular, and this is back to kind of thinking about the state and the alignment work they've done, that curriculum is what is taught. Also, NCCER is widely taught at the TCATs in the state. So when you look at a kid who walks out of our programs with a core certification, that's actually taking clock hours off their program if they were to continue, let's say, in a TCAT electrical program or construction systems or one of those programs, if they teach that curriculum, and a lot of them do. So again, alignment's important when you think about the post-secondary, where they may land, and the state puts different value or weight on certain certifications if they're more valuable at the post-secondary level, but that comes back to sort of that nature of that EBSO conversation. So as I mentioned, if you look at the scale on the left-hand side, that's number of students. And in the blue, you're seeing 17, 18. In the orange, you're seeing 18, 19. You can see that we do have a lot of students who walk out with that certification. And again, going back to what I explained, it's really about how the students are engaged in that test. They're not having to retain a bunch of knowledge or do a whole lot of extra over time. It's embedded into our curriculum. And the other nice thing is we buy the curriculum and we don't pay a per student cost for the test in that particular one. So again, a little bit different. You can see in the other areas, electrical 1, plumbing 1, carpentry 1. Then we've got some EPA. We have very few participants in HVAC. That's some of our HVAC classes. And then AutoCAD is more of a computer-aided drafting. That's more really out of architectural design class, which really is not building systems. It's more design and drafting work. Yep.
I know we're not looking at the entire broad spectrum of everything you offer and all of the data, but in this particular one, are you also aligning the ready jobs? I mean, I think of HVAC and plumbing, and how many of those vendors are desperate for new workforce and saying, look, not steering, but reminding or offering our students, look, there is ample opportunity right here to be able to really run right into a great career, and seeing anybody taking more and more of that to align with what our workforce needs are.
So it's a work in progress, I'll say that, and it's actually part of a much larger issue. I think there's an education campaign on our part for all levels, whether you're talking about school administrators, counselors, teachers in the classroom, in really helping students understand the opportunities and the pathways that if you want to engage in this, how do you continue? What are the opportunities for you to continue training or go to work in this field, and then what can that mean for you long term as far as a career? And we do that through a variety of ways. Our partnerships with outside entities is very important to that. We've had a long-standing partnership where we help to facilitate some apprenticeship programs for the East Tennessee plumbing, heating, and cooling contractors, Resource Valley. We have some folks within our department that help facilitate that after hours program for them. So we have great relationships with those two organizations. More recently, last year, we had our first ever career fair that we put on for our trades programs specifically, and that was a collaborative project between the construction science program at UT, which is an excellent program. I keep going about that. And then also the Builders Exchange of Tennessee, which has a variety of general contractors that make up that association. And we were able to bring students there to meet with their people and pass out resumes and do all that sort of stuff. And we had about 10 students that were hired out of that last year. There were some of our upper level programs. So that's not perfect. We're continuing to work. A lot of those partnerships too exist kind of class by class. You know, a lot of our guys that teach carpentry or plumbing and that sort of stuff have come out of industry and have those connections that they continue to lean back into, and they bring speakers in and do that sort of stuff. But we're just trying to be more strategic in terms of how we expose kids to okay, you've shown some aptitude here, you show some interest here, here's what you could do next, like here's where you could take that. So, and that's the challenge across a lot of things. I mean, not just HVAC or any of those others, but is helping students connect with what the next step could be for them, no matter what that is. So let's go to the complete other end of the spectrum. So we talk about carpentry. Cybersecurity is a huge area of opportunity and growth and jobs that will be open over the next 10 years or so, because data and the protection of data is a huge thing. So this is another example of a program of study, right? This is within our information technology career cluster, and again you see a sequence of courses that a student might choose to take, but here you see examples of AP that are included in that. So if you're a school that's offering AP computer science principles, a student in the cybersecurity pathway could follow a very traditional academic route, and they could say computer science foundations, and then I'll take cybersecurity 1. Or they could opt for a heavier academic load, and they could move up into an AP computer science principles instead of that can fit into that sequence of courses. You see dual enrollment opportunities here. So again, Pellissippi has a cybersecurity program. We actually, if you aren't aware, we're just recently awarded in partnership with Pellissippi and the Chamber, and we kind of worked collaboratively on one of the governor's GIVE grants, investment in vocational education grants, and we're awarded for further partnership and development of programming in coding and cybersecurity that's going to be primarily, Amy continues to work with us here, we're hoping to be primarily focused in that first district kind of Pellissippi Magnolia campus, and in serving that community to broaden some opportunities for really the post-secondary there, but really using our high school programs to feed and to align into that post-secondary program. So again, huge opportunity in terms of the economic opportunities for a student coming out of those programs. You see a whole different industry certification path here through CompTIA. This is probably some of the most rigorous certification pathways that we offer, and some of the most expensive. So again, student by student, if we have those that test in IT fundamentals, that's a $75 per student cost. We pay that out of our federal Perkins grant award that funds our CTE programming, funds the majority of our CTE programming. When you move up to industry certification at the second level, that A+ certification is actually 2 tests the student have to take, and they're over $200 a piece. So when the student sits for both parts of that exam, it's about a $400 cost. Success rate has not traditionally been high for us on that, but we're getting better. And again, I'll go back to what I said. A lot of that is about the teacher learning what works, what doesn't work, what are the resources I need to call upon, what prepared my kids the best, who did well, and kind of that feedback cycle of trying some things and seeing what works and reframing. There's definitely learning on the part of the teacher to support that work. And we have to work with our teachers to ensure that the resources, we don't want to say if you've got 25 kids enrolled in the class, we want to drop $400 a piece and have a 10% return rate on that. That's not what we're after. So really working with them to say, what are those indicators of success? How is the kid showing you they're ready to demonstrate on this test that they've got that skill set? Yes, sir.
So we pay for the first test, the $400.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to go back can they go back and retake the test, and who pays the cost?
So by the state's rules, and I'll tell you, our general thing is you've taken a class, we look for the state's alignment. So you've taken cybersecurity 1, and the state says that's where that A+ exam aligns. We're going to give the student the opportunity, again, if they've shown that they can, to take that test, and we're paying for that. If they weren't successful on it, we would probably not, from the district perspective, go back and reinvest another $400 to do that. Could the student do it? Absolutely. And actually, from a ready graduate standpoint, if you're looking at would it count for the kid, a kid, according to how the state views it, can really test and take an industry certification at any time they want at their own cost. They could test for any number of things. We, from a funding standpoint, look for that alignment and say, you know what, if the state said that the teaching and the instruction aligns here, that's when we're going to promote and we're going to pay that money for the kid to take it. But we try to stay pretty tightly aligned with that. With our size, I think that's a good way to look at our resources and stay committed to that. Yeah.
On the industry certifications, you were sort of saying the teachers are kind of trying to learn how to get better at doing it. Is there any kind of professional development for our teachers as far as, I mean, I know with AP and IB, they go off and get trained,
Sure.
but is there the same type of thing on this to
So-
teach the instructors how to be better?
So yes and no. You know, I think again, you're looking at a wide range of vendors and sort of how that stuff is handled.
Sure.
So for an example, we added precision measurement instruments, which is a Snap-on tool certification at 3 high schools this year, which I was mentioning earlier, sort of a trial and error, that we're seeing how this works, right? We added that, and for that in particular training, we had to send teachers to a 5-day training to be certified to be instructors for precision measurement, to learn how to use the tools and how to do all that. So that's very well defined. When you pick up something like Microsoft Office certification, you know, so you got kids that can certify as experts or specialists in Word and PowerPoint and Excel. Those teachers are already teaching like advanced computer apps and probably have a knowledge base, but can probably, also there's probably ways to get better at ensuring the kids are successful on the exam. You may be teaching them how the basics of using this, but also then there's that extra level of success. So, you know, that's not as well defined, although there are resources out there about how to pass, you know, those certifications. So the training need there is a little different. And some of it does come back to even how the tests are administered and proctored. You know, you may have to have certain trainings and certifications just to administer the test and do that.
And then another question I had, especially on the cybersecurity side of it, if a kid gets it, I mean, obviously these are expensive and hard to take, if they get it, what does it do for them besides being already graduate EPSOs? I mean, what, as far as industry or jobs, can this sort of help them with?
It's dependent, again, upon the certification. For CompTIA in particular, I know that there are introductory computer science courses in the programs at UT that if you walk in, the purpose of that class essentially is to prepare you for that exam. So there are transcripted, you can walk in and say, I've got the certification, and it's taking hours off of the program that you would have on the program. So there's that. Again, it's really just wide range depending on what the certifications are, and they're not all counted equal. I mean, that's the truth of it too. The state's done a lot of work for alignment. I think you're going to see, and I think I mentioned on my last slide, you're going to see this thing change and develop over time. They're going to have certifications that they're really high on this year that they may come back in 2 years and go, we're not so sure we want to count that one. And I think we try to stay very focused on value to the kid as much as possible, and ones that we feel like are strongly aligned. But there's trial and error with the teachers. You know, that we've done a bunch with OSHA 10 this semester. That last year we tried a few. I think we had 90, and I got the numbers today. We've had 580 pass it this semester through our health science programs. But I can tell you, all of our teachers don't feel the same about how they've incorporated it and how it fits into the class they're teaching. So we have to be attentive to that too, and really keep a standards first, I think, approach in classes, because you know I'll go back a couple of slides you see with NCCER. You can do the core curriculum and you can do OSHA 10 also if you wanted to. And that second level, you can do carpentry and that precision measurements one that I mentioned. But that's about 30 hours of instruction for precision measurement. So you think about if I see kids 90 minutes a day and there's 30 hours of instruction that I need to include to pass that certification, that's a big chunk of time for a teacher who's teaching a class for a semester. So I think we have to be cognizant of that as we layer these things in and keep a focus on our first job is to teach the standard, and then to choose that early post-secondary opportunity that we think gives us the highest value and is most aligned to what our goals are.
Keith, go ahead.
If you would share with the group one of the most direct industry certifications that I have been exposed to is in our medical field.
Yes.
If you would talk to a couple like
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
pharmacy tech and
Sure.
that sort of thing.
With our health science programs, we're able to certify students for, I think, one of our most popular and I think best ones as a certified nursing assistant. So the CNA certification, I mean, people can go to TCAT and get a CNA certification. We're able to offer that through our high school programs. And we have lots of students who graduate from our programs and are going to further their education in health sciences and are working as CNAs while they're doing that. So it's an employable skill. The one you mentioned is pharmacy tech. We have students who are hired out of our medical therapeutics programs or our diagnostics, again, lots of programs, that they come out with that are able to go to work and actually make more money as a fresh out of high school student because they have that certification. We have been doing pretty well with certified personal trainers over the past few years. That's been a newer and was actually a very difficult certification for students to start to do, but we've been doing well with that. EKG techs.
That's right.
So reading echocardiograms. We have students that certify in that as well through our health sciences programs. And we have health sciences, I think, at 12 high schools, like out of the 15 traditional. So it's a popular program, and you start to look at workforce demand and job openings. It's also a very lucrative area. So again, back to your point earlier, when we think about that education campaign, getting our programs as aligned as possible to fields that we know will provide employment opportunities for students in our local area and region is important economically for us, and it's important economically for students, but also about keeping our talent here, I think, too. But that's a work over time progress. I've just been in CTE 2 years. I don't know that we've had that conversation a lot in the past, but we're continuing to help elevate that into the discussion as we think about academics that matter, CTE programs that matter. Like, all of this is about really what are the opportunities here that we want to capitalize on for kids.
So is the goal similar to how each school has their academic identity? Is the goal to have a school to have their CTE identity as well?
I think the goal, I'm going to call it CTE identity because
Oh, you don't like that term?
It won't be, you feel free. I don't know if it would be to the extent that it would be, making us exclusive to another program. Because again, we're going to have health sciences in multiple schools. We're probably going to have construction programming in multiple schools. So it's not about maybe having something that's special just to us that some other school doesn't have. But I think we do have to look at what I would like a principal to be able to do is to articulate, here are the CTE programs that matter most and why we have these in my school. And to know where it fits into again, the workforce and economic demands of our region, so that when, they come to me and they say, well, nobody's signing up for this class, and that may be because, honestly, sometimes it's because they don't want to sign up for Miss Jones, right? Mm-hmm. But that Miss Jones may not be attracting kids, but we know we need that program, and we have the data to show that we've got kids with aptitude in this area. Like you mentioned, U-Science, for instance. So we're doing more now to give us some actionable data about what is it our kids are interested in truly. It's not about Miss Jones. I may want to know a lot about marketing, but I don't want to sit in her class, right? So we've got to start to look at programming that really fits the need of the kid and collect data to do that. So U-Science is a tool that we put in place this year that we're using with our currently our 8th graders and 9th graders. And what it does is it creates a profile for that student. It's based in the same research as ASVAB, if you're familiar with that sort of battery aptitude test that they give. And what it does is it comes out and it shows for the student, okay, here's areas you were interested in based on some interest inventories that you do. And then there's some brain games you play. Again, this is based in that research. And that comes out to says, here's the aptitudes that you show. So you may, for instance, have a really high aptitude in advanced manufacturing, but you may have no clue what advanced manufacturing is, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this gap between what I know and what I might be good at. And I can't be real interested in something that I don't know exists. And so when we think about CTE programming, a lot of it is about exposure, right? So if there are opportunities in advanced manufacturing in our area, we need programming for that. And that programming's job is to show kids, hey, here's a field in our area that's an opportunity for you. Here's what it looks like to learn, train, and work in that area. And whether they pick that up or not is really up to them. We're not trying to make 15-year-olds decide what they want to be for the rest of their lives, but they may decide what they don't want to be. And we're okay with that too. Like, that's a good decision to make because you're saving time and money at that post-secondary level on whatever you're going to do. So tools like U-Science allow us to do that. It was mentioned about ASVAB, and does every school offer that? What I would say the right fit on that is if you want to give it to your entire 10th grade, might be a good idea, but it's really what you do with the test results, right? So you're getting a report back on those students that tells a lot about them and about what they might be good at, similar to U-Science. So what are we doing with that information? Are we having conversations with kids? Are we taking that data and saying, now here are some decisions you might make because of what we know from this test? If it's just giving a test to meet ready graduate, it's probably not the most valuable experience for the student population. Yeah.
What are we doing? Because when I look at these certifications, you really ideally want to get the kids in the pathway in 9th or 10th grade to kind of get them along in 3 or 4 classes, which means really 8th grade, these kids need to be starting. And I look at my 8th grade kids who would have never been thinking about this. And a lot is, I mean, I think back to when we met with that 8th grade counselor, and I know they, at that point, we're not talking about this. What are we doing with the middle school counselors to get them up to speed, to try to get them to have these conversations with these kids?
Well, so U-Science is one of the tools we can put out there. Now, the question comes back, what are you doing with it, right? So, our idea of putting it with middle school, this year at the 8th grade, just because of the timeline and launch, it may be that we can actually push that to the end of 7th grade, just to get that first initial kind of middle school profile, because then it gives you the whole 8th grade year to work with that. And so the new counseling standards, if you're familiar with them, really do push into college standard awareness and exploration and all of that pathway planning. And so that is part of the counselor role as defined by the state of Tennessee now. If you look at the new Perkins requirements, we are going to be held as a CTE department or a county and LEA receiving those funds to demonstrate how are we educating students and parents about careers and pathways and opportunities. So the accountability is increasing in that area, so we've got to start to do more in that realm. So the U-Science, again, kind of puts a red flag on that and says, now we've got this data, what are we going to do with it? So we put it at that 8th grade year because of those decisions that are about to happen. You're getting ready to choose your high school schedules. And my daughter came home from 8th grade last year, and she had this schedule sheet, and she said had to pick 10 electives off that schedule sheet because 4 of them she was going to get and 6 of them were alternatives. And so I looked at that and I said, well, you know, I work for the school district and I can look at this and pick out a few things, but I didn't have a lot of advice for her either, right? So we need to do things, I think, to start to narrow the focus for kids. And I think that's what things like U-Science and those conversations do, is they say, well, you know, this report said my top 3 kind of interest areas are this, or my top 3 aptitudes are here. So if I'm looking at 10 choices, these 5 make sense to me. Like, this is where I would want to learn more. It's not perfect, but it helps them to start to take some things off the plate, I think, when you start to think about high school electives. And that's really the name of the game when it comes to CTE, are those elective choices. But we've already got schools, I think, at the middle school that are trying to do more sort of parent night. Southfield Middle did that very recently and had a great little event. They invited us out to talk and meet with parents and talk about programming. It's just changing, I guess, the fabric of how we have included that into the school. I'll say briefly, too, about middle school programming, that there's more interest on their part to really look at some career exploration type of coursework and things like that. We, as part of our kind of strategic thinking last year, we talked about somebody to kind of pay attention to all this EPSO stuff. So we have hired a college and career specialist who's doing a lot of, she's doing U-Science launch work with us. She's working now through some of the lesson plan and stuff that's provided through that system and pushing that back out to schools to say, okay, counselor, you're meeting with 8th graders, here's the lesson plan you want to draw out and build upon. She's helping us do some strategic work around kind of reimagining our college and career fair for middle schools and how to change the language and how we kind of set that up to really be career oriented. So giving somebody a day-to-day, like they wake up eating, breathing, and sleeping and thinking about that to help us build some strategic stuff, I think is important to that too. We've also, with our middle school programming, you know, you talk about kind of getting engaged at an early state. In a few cases, we've used some distinguished professionals and stuff this year to, like, Cedar Bluff Middle is offering 2 sections of health science introduction coursework. So those students, I think there's 40 of them, will walk into Hardin Valley High School next year, think about aligning those pathways, and they can go into health science there already having that freshman level credit done. It's also opened up high school electives to a group of kids at the middle school level, which traditionally have only been those honors kids who are in physical science and algebra 1. You know, you've got to qualify there. Well, now we've got a different elective option for them at the middle school to do that. But we'll have to figure out some sustainability for things like that over time because there is cost associated with DP, and Gibbs is doing that as well, but with a high school teacher that comes down for an additional block of instruction every day to the middle school. So we're trying to prompt some of that vertical alignment and thinking to get kids engaged with what could be at the high school level for them.
I think for me, and I don't think there's an answer to this, but it's just something that just keeps coming to mind when especially because this is state mandated in a sense, like, so we just have to follow along. But I just think about those kids that are in transient populations that hop from school to school that you do need to start in 8th grade, but they never finish in one district or one school system to 12th grade. And so kids that are coming in and out, I know there's many options for you to be a ready graduate, but again, this is just me giving like my grief to like having to do like a plain blanket, this is what you should do, because there's many kids that will get left out of these opportunities, but because they didn't start at that school in the 9th grade, they come there in 11th grade, but they're really high in cybersecurity, but they're just too far behind to take the class. And so, I don't know, I guess I'm just grieving.
Well, so what I'd say to that is, there's twofold. So you got to get students the right number of credits. Let's talk about graduation first. Like graduation comes first, and that's really about elective focus and making sure that they get those. I would say, and I've got 2 people who can tell me I'm wrong here, but I would say there's room typically in the high school schedule for really more electives than you're required to have. I will say, to your point, that where the challenge I see with that is with the transient population, I'm sure that's just as true, is sometimes with our special education students, with our students who are English language learners, because of the additional required stuff that's in their schedule, we have challenges of getting them to be able to fit into the schedule of the day, the coursework, and some of these CTE elective pathways, probably just to do that. Nothing would stop a junior who arrived at a high school they hadn't been at from sitting in cybersecurity or in computer science foundation for cybersecurity. Wouldn't stop them from doing that, provided they could fit it into their schedule. They have their other, graduating credits. I think there's room there quite often, but there certainly are challenges for students to get the opportunity in these programs.
I think that's one advantage to the block schedule that we have in most high schools, because you do have opportunity. Even a kid that does, as a freshman and sophomore is in one elective focus and then they shift to a different one, they still have plenty of time to get a lot of classes in as a junior and senior. Which I think is good.
All right, so by your time, and if you have any questions, I'll answer those. When we think about CTE, I think, again, I may have mentioned this already, we really try to keep a focus on value to student and making sure that, in some pathways, dual enrollment may be a better option for a program of study or than the industry certifications that are offered. And the state has advisory boards and folks that help to sort of drive what industry certifications are selected and aligned, and it should be reflective of the economic, environment and what is valued by the industry. But it's not a perfect system, and it will continue to change and develop. And so we have to kind of always keep the student in mind when we think about what's being taught and the amount of time it will take to do things. We're certainly looking at that. So I've said this a lot. When you get something like Ready Graduate that rolls down the pike and we start paying attention to EPSOs and how many kids will have an industry certification out there, we can game the system as educators. If you give educators a number, we will hit it. That's not hard to do. We'll put everybody in dual enrollment PE for that matter. We can do that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean it's necessarily doing good things for kids. And so we want to keep the focus on that. And that may mean there's some things we say no to when it comes to industry certifications, quite honestly, over time. And then again, just to highlight what I've already said, keep in mind, these are very different from industry to industry, from vendor to vendor, in how they're conducted and what they cost, and in terms of how successful students will be. So when a principal looks on their roster of classes and they have fundamentals of construction and they've got computer science principles, right? They've got cybersecurity 1. They may get 100 NCCER cores, but they're not going to get 100 out of that CompTIA. It's much more rigorous and very different. So we have to keep educating schools and principals about that too. If you're relying on certain programs for high industry certification numbers, it may just not happen because of the rigor and the challenge of how those work. So,
Awesome.
yes.
Can you talk a little bit, I see Amy's here, I think it behooves everybody to realize that we're not just doing this in a silo, that we're working with the chamber and everything like that. So, talk a little bit about you're working with them to...
Sure. Well, I always, like any public opportunity I get, to say what a great partner, first of all, that the chamber has been since I first started. And of course, they've changed leadership a little bit, but Amy's sort of been a consistent point of contact for us. Amy Nolan has. And, they've been part of, I think, that education campaign very willingly to come in and meet with us and talk with our principals even. Last year, we were able to bring all of our high school principals together really to get sort of an economic snapshot of our region and to hear from Doug Lawyer at the chamber about the types of businesses that they recruit, the ones that are moving in, the opportunities not only in our larger area, but he was able to break down even some partnership opportunities for industries in each school zone and give that information back to principals to say, hey, if advanced manufacturing is an opportunity for growth in our area, here's 3 companies that do that. in Knoxville. You want to know more about it, let us help you set up and do that. And again, we can do some better opportunities with Volunteer on that. They do tons for the district, whether you're talking about their help on Principal for a Day or Educators in the Workplace or any number of activities that help connect the outside into the schools or our teachers going out and spending some time in industry. We have paid teachers during the summer to participate in externships for the past several years, which are highly valuable experiences where a health sciences teacher can go and shadow an employee in a hospital setting or something like that for a couple of days, and then they come back and we pay them during the summer again a day to bring back what they've learned and build lesson plans around incorporating that information into the classroom. And so, you know, keeping current in industry is hugely important for us and our role, and they help us do that by keeping us connected with their partners and their membership at the larger level. So they've been really good. They continue to help us think through, you know, connections to our connections with Pellissippi. Pellissippi is another great partner, but we work on some of the workforce stuff with them. They, like I said, they worked with us with the grant development. We've got some newer, exciting things coming up, I think, in some other areas that could pan out over time. So, again, they've just been sort of a go-to that we consistently work with in that regard.
Well, thank you very much for that. And Amy, thank you for being here and representing the Chamber. Such a vital partnership, and we really appreciate all the information.
We want to finish up, but quickly, before we move on, the next topic that we're going to talk about.
I was just saying thank you.
Oh, thank you, Pete. The next topic that we'll have scheduled for January is KCE Comprehensive Facility Review. And so quickly, if anybody has anything for April or July on their hearts at the moment, you can share. If not, go ahead and feel free to email us with any quickly, because we're going to leave in 3 minutes. April or July, thinking about that time for my seasoned people that's been here. What would be a good topic for April? I think that'll be good because we do have county commissioner. I know we'll be in budget season and all that fun stuff. So, budget. What specifically, or just all around?
Well, I think probably just to be able to talk about what the priorities are, so that when the budget, when they receive the budget, they'll kind of already, you know, we'll have four commissioners who've already talked through it with us.
So budget priorities, not necessarily how because last year we did a comprehensive budget review to understand it, and
Right.
BEP. This year, maybe something that's more, what are the budget priorities and how does that align with the strategic plan?
And it's good also, I think, to get an update from the mayor's office on how the projected spending is and projected revenues, to know if we are in fact where we should, if the county's where they think they should have been, and if in fact there's going to be a rosier outlook, or if we're, you know, scrambling just to even meet.
So we'll
last
call
year's
that budget priorities in alignment with strategic plan plus. We'll
Okay.
define it better
Sure.
at
But
that
that's
point.
only a
Ron.
week before we're slated to approve the budget.
Right, okay.
April 22nd is our current date.
For our new commissioners at the table, are there other topics that we didn't either cover last year that you might review, or things that are top of mind that you might want to bring to forth in July?
Well, I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at the review of the topics from last year, but safety is a big thing on
That's a
my
great
mind.
one.
Safety
Okay.
in both
Yeah,
the
that's
school
good.
zones as well as then the parental responsibilities.
So
Done.
safety and security in July. Does that seem?
Done.
Yeah.
That's a great
See,
idea.
that's the whole idea of JEC, joint education. All we know is education. You all see the other side.
That's right, that's right.
That's
Well,
awesome.
that's awesome.
Cool,
Okay, so we
we're done.
have our yearly agenda set. Of course, if there's anything else anybody can bring to the table, then please do. And I know our team will make today's presentation available to us so we can look at it electronically. And I look forward to another great year
Perfect.
of working together between our commission and our school board.
Means adjourned.
Yes.
Thank you.
Merry
both for
Christmas.
coming in.
All right.